That teacher got kicked out of school for helping jump a student. I don't feel good about this. His name is Thor, the strongest support mage in history, even after being in the party that took down the Demon King. 10 years later, he's treated like absolute trash. He could never move up the ranks as a teacher at Villain Academy. See, support magic is super unpopular among mages. Most think it's just glorified babysitting. That year, one single student joined his class, and she was one of the prettiest girls in the entire school. The school prodigy kept bullying her to try and force a date, so Thor had to step in. The kid calls Professor Thor trash, useless, a freeloader. He moves to swing, but the girl steps up and challenges them to a magic duel to settle it once and for all. If she loses, she marries that idiot, but if they win, he stops bothering Professor Thor forever. Duel day, the girl takes point, and the professor handles all the buffs. Battle starts. He casts a spell. That buff was so intense, the girl felt the wild power shift immediately. She already knew the professor's magic was anything but normal. He quickly drops a slow debuff on the rivals. The kid fires back, launching a massive fireball. Instantly, Thor slaps a water element buff onto his student. Raina swings her blade, and with one clean slash, she totally kills the flames, charging forward with everything she's got. It was over. That supposed prodigy had just lost everything. Everyone watching was shocked. No one knew Raina had that kind of power. But the real problem, the school principal was watching the whole thing. And his face, he did not look happy at all. Shortly after, Thor is in the principal's office. The guy, usually calm, now looks like a furious little dog, basically foaming at the mouth, screaming that Thor is fired. Not satisfied, Thor asks why, especially since he had already reported the original incident. But the principal claims they can't waste budget on support magic anymore, calling him a useless salary thief. But get this, the academy has more than enough cash, so Thor knows the headmaster is just finding excuses to cut him loose. Giblet's father is a major school sponsor, and this conflict could have cost them some serious money. Even when the mage brings up the student's terrible behavior, the headmaster snaps, telling him to shut it. He thinks Villain Academy will never grow if they keep following old ideals. They need more funds, better gear, and clout. Thor asks if how a student gets treated just depends on their family's bank account. The headmaster ignores the dig, making it crystal clear that Thor is done, fired, and needs to get out right this second, even as the mage. Thor tries to make one last request, but gets ignored and thrown out of the office. Walking down the halls, he's feeling totally defeated until he runs into Raina. She thanks him for the help he gave her just the other day. He shrugs it off, says it's fine, and takes the chance to mention he's been fired. The student is shocked. She's worried it was her fault, but Thor quickly explains. He tells her he'd been thinking about leaving for a long time anyway. He thanks Raina for always showing up to his classes, and he hopes he was actually able to help her in some way, since there'd be no reason to stay at the academy if he left. The mage decides she'd drop out too. Thor scolds her immediately for making that kind of reckless decision. It would ruin her promising future, and he knows how talented she really is. She should graduate before she ends up a total failure like him. Raina gets embarrassed when Thor steps a little closer, then explains herself. She wouldn't have any problem leaving school because she'd already earned enough credits. Thor is genuinely impressed, especially since she was only in her second year. He figures Raina will be just fine without him because she learns so fast. In the end, the girl decides she won't try to stop him anymore and leaves. Thor stands there wondering if the support magic he taught would be useful to her, even a little. The next day, he grabs his suitcase to finally leave the academy behind. But he knows he doesn't have anywhere to go and will be out of cash soon. All of a sudden, Raina shows up and overhears the main guy considering traveling the world again. The student hands him an envelope and asks him to go to the imperial capital. She wants him to give it to the palace guards. She knows someone there who respects him. It's a solid plan, a way for him to land a new job. Grateful, the main guy takes the envelope and says goodbye to his student. Raina just smiles, clearly excited to see him again in the future. A few days pass, and Thor arrives in the royal capital to meet Emperor Heinrich. Just like Raina promised, he hands over the letter. Everyone in the castle treats him with total respect, which leaves him confused. Thor doesn't understand why he's getting such special treatment from the staff. He really wonders who Raina's friend could actually be. Later, he's called in to meet Emperor Heinrich himself. Now watch this, here is where the secret finally comes out. The ruler says they would never forget how Thor and his team saved the world. When they defeated the Demon Lord, it changed everything for this kingdom. Nervous, the main guy says he just did what anyone would have done in his place. That pure humility makes the emperor laugh. He tells Thor he can have whatever he wants as a reward for his service. So Thor mentions the letter from Raina, worried they might be misunderstanding something here. Right away, a female voice replies that he's being treated exactly how he deserves. After they received the student's letter, everything changed. That was Elena von Moisted, the princess and Raina's close friend. Realizing exactly who she is, Thor bows and asks for forgiveness. He never imagined that his student had friends in such high places. Thor bows, asking for forgiveness. He never imagined how this would go. The two girls are close, and Elena just laughs at his over-the-top reaction. She suggests showing Thor his new room. On top of that, the princess offers to answer any questions he has. With the emperor's blessing, they head to another room to talk. Thor tries to chat, but he's having a hard time being casual with royalty. To calm him down, Elena explains that he once saved her life. Ever since that day, she's respected him a lot. The princess wanted to show him around earlier, but she was just too busy. That much kindness makes Thor worrying he won't live up to such high expectations. So Elena says she'd always heard Raina praising the lessons. She got so much from him, remembering his former student. Thor is moved, crying actual tears of joy. That reaction makes the princess laugh, and she suggests he become a court mage. That way, he could use his magic to solve the empire's problems. In exchange for meals, a house, and a proper salary, Elena offers 100 gold coins a month. She's even willing to pay in advance, which completely shocks Thor. With such a massive reward, he naturally worries. He wonders what kind of work he'll actually have to do. In response, the princess says she wants him to marry her. Completely confused, our protagonist doesn't know what to say. Later, even though he thinks the proposal was a tasteless joke, Thor decides to take the job. When he reaches his new room, he finds Raina waiting in the hallway. Thor is surprised to see her, but then realizes something. The girl decided to leave the academy. The mage explains she'd already aced her grades and saw no point in staying without her teacher. Deeply touched, he thanks her, mentioning his new job. Thanks to her recommendation letter, things are looking up, and Raina promises to support him. After all, she's a court mage too. She explains she only went to the academy to sharpen her own skills. That is why Raina is ready to support him from now on as his assistant. The protagonist asks what they will actually have to do. The mage explains it could literally be anything. It doesn't even sound like real work, and Raina quickly blames the princess. Mages serve the royal family, led by Elena, even if they rarely get orders. In the end, they could just sit around until they're given something to do. Raina suggests Thor go with her to greet the commander of the court mages. The two head to the office, ask permission to enter, and they're received by Biden Zaxberg. The mage introduces the newbie. This leaves the acting commander confused, since he hadn't heard a word about it. He has never seen Raina either, but confirms she is officially on the team. When he spots the crest on her clothes, Biden asks who hired that scruffy-looking man. Raina says it was the princess herself. She wanted to greet the division commander, Who is in charge of evaluating rookies? That is, well, the real leader is away on a job. Lena needles him for not following the princess's orders, making Biden absolutely furious. The acting commander argues letting just anyone in could hurt the court's reputation. The maid snaps back, disobeying Elena could be seen as treason against the crown. She turns to leave. Biden yells out, furious that Thor looks so useless. Still, he says he'll give him a single chance to prove his worth. But when the protagonist says he is skilled with magic, the commander just laughs. Even being treated like dirt, the guy asks for a shot to show his stuff. He tells them if he isn't worthy of the team, he'll leave without complaining. Giving in to all that insistence, Biden tells Thor to take the hiring exam. Thor is happy. He bows low, showing real respect. About an hour later, all the participants gather in the courtyard. Among them is Jeebold, Biden's son, totally sure he'll make the cut. But the moment the boy spots Thor, he freezes and starts shaking with fear. He runs desperately into his father's arms at the sight of Lena's scary face. He's completely lost his nerve. A furious Biden asks what the protagonist did. Thor answers coolly, they only had a small duel back at the academy. Finally, the test begins, and Biden makes it clear he is testing Thor personally. Court mages specialize, so Thor is assigned to support duty. The commander calls for Velgar, a seasoned Knight of the Order. Our protagonist is teamed up with a rookie swordswoman, Mia, to face them. Lena is against it. The fight would be pretty unfair. The commander snaps back that winning isn't actually required. Thor greets the rookie. Lena gives a quick, harsh rundown on the girl. Mia is a baron's daughter and a new ranked knight, solid with her shield. But Lena adds he could be fired any day. Thor scolds her for being rude. Mia says it is fine. Everything Lena said was true. Compared to Velgar, who is the strongest in the division, she feels totally useless. She's afraid she'd just get in the way during this duel. Lena comforts the girl, making it clear they will win with Thor as an ally. The protagonist agrees, promising they'll pass as long as they put in the effort. Meanwhile, Biden yells at his cowardly son, trying to stop him from shaking. Every time the kid looks at Lena, he loses it. The commander explains that Jeebold will face the mage and the knight alongside Velgar. There is no way they could lose. The son finally regains his confidence. Velgar takes a long look at his opponents. Even though the veteran sees Mia has potential, he knows he cannot let his guard down. Not around Thor. A little later, Biden starts the duel, explaining that either side could win. Just put in the effort and you'll pass, he insists, while nearby Biden bellows at his cowardly son, desperate to make the boy stop shaking. When his eyes land on Lena, the stand-in explains that Jeebold is set to face the pathetic mage and the rookie knight. Velgar is with him, so there is just no way he could lose. The son regained his confidence, and Velgar seizes the chance to scout his opponents. Even though the veteran can clearly see the potential in Mia, he knows he cannot let his guard down around Thor. A little later, Biden kicks off the duel, declaring that either side will fall. Lena watches, thinking about how Velgar could easily force a surrender if he wanted. After all, he's pretty famous for taking down two dragons. Those creatures are considered the most powerful in this world. He's a massive opponent. Even Biden is feeling confident, betting his son Giblet will walk away with the win. Giblet preps a fire spell, but Thor tells his partner to stand down, let him handle it. The protagonist slows down the casting, shattering the spell before it even forms. Giblet is left stunned, and that's the opening Velgar needs to charge. He barrels toward them, so Thor makes a call, boost Mia's defenses instead. Mia panics as the veteran knight's sword screams toward her shield. She braces for impact, only to realize she actually blocked it. She's amazed. Thor knows she can't hold out alone, so he targets Giblet first. One quick light spell later, the boy hits the dirt, completely defeated. Beden bellows for them to call off the exam right now. But Lena isn't having it. She uses her magic to seal his voice. The battle rages on. Meanwhile, Thor is genuinely impressed by Velgar. The knight is so fast he's dispersing spells before they even manifest. Thor realizes he can't weaken a warrior like this. He pivots, pouring strength into Mia so they can strike before the blades clash. Thor boosts the gravity on her sword, making Velgar's defense a nightmare. The knight doesn't even hesitate. He slips past Mia, closing the gap to take Thor out for good. But his sword slams into an iron barrier, and the blade just snaps. In that heartbeat, Velgar knows Thor is something extraordinary, and he surrenders. He even helps Mia up, praising the way she pushed her limits today. As the knights clear out, Lena approaches to congratulate Thor on the victory. Bedin interrupts, barking that the exam is far from over. It's clear as day. There's another match coming. He refuses to acknowledge Thor, demanding he follow orders. Thor complies. Lena clearly hates the move, but Thor stands his ground. He wants to test his own limits and see what he's truly capable of. He needs to know if he's actually worthy of becoming a court mage. Moments later, his next opponent steps onto the battlefield, Lena. She's the daughter of the Mage Division's commander, though she holds zero respect. She doesn't see Thor as a threat at all. She's completely bored, while Bedin sneers that Thor is just a trivial test. At least she'd be entertained for a few minutes, he thinks. Lena is an annoying brat, but her magic skill puts her in the court's elite. This is Bedin's twisted chance to wipe out both of them at once. Meanwhile, the girl strolls over to greet the protagonist. She's caught off guard when he recognizes her as the new examiner. Thor mentions he can sense the experience of a true mage in her. She's smug. Lena snaps at her to introduce herself properly and show some basic manners. They're on the verge of a full argument, so Thor steps in to cool the air. Lena decides to let the jab slide, showing respect for the protagonist. She starts to explain the situation. The next phase of the exam starts, face her, and the battle ends. It's simple. Whoever lands a spell first wins. The two mages step into the arena, ready to go, but Thor fires an attack so fast. Lena barely registers it before taking a direct hit. Lena declares the match over, and the mage is furious. She demands a rematch. She claims she just let her guard down, and Bedin rushes to Luna's defense. Thor agrees, too, since he doesn't want to pass the test unfairly. The match resets, and both mages prepare to attack at the exact same time. Thor knows Lena will be just as tough as Velgar. He cannot weaken her in the slightest. Her offensive techniques cross multiple elements, show off her immense talent, reminding the protagonist of an old friend. That friend learned magic alongside Thor and quickly surpassed him. Back then, it didn't take long for the protagonist to grow frustrated and jealous. He was terrified of what might happen if they ever faced a real threat together. So he studied hard so he wouldn't be a burden, refining his support magic, though he was never truly proud of what he achieved. Thor scolds himself for getting lost in those old memories. He realizes Lena is frustrated because her opponent is reading every single one of her attacks. Because of that split-second hesitation, she gives the protagonist the opening to beat her with a simple wind spell. Lena announces the end of the match, and Lena realizes she was defeated by a blind spot. Thor, on the other hand, is just relieved he won by relying on his raw battle experience. His opponent would have crushed him if this were just a contest of strength. While everyone focuses on the two mages, Bane seizes the chance to cast a hidden spell right above Lena. Thor is the first to notice something is wrong and sprints toward her, shouting at her to drop what she's holding. Though confused, Lena obeys, letting go of her staff just as it gets destroyed by Bane's spell. The protagonist pulls her to safety, checking to see if she's hurt, which leaves the girl embarrassed after being held in his arms. Once she's back on her feet, Lena vows to beat Thor next time and runs off. Even after all that, Bane still refuses to acknowledge the protagonist. Suddenly, a group of knights appears to arrest the acting commander under direct imperial order. He's accused of embezzling funds, meddling with the magic, academy, and abusing his authority. He is to be put on trial by Heinrich. Everyone watches as Bane gets dragged away by the knights. The mood turning sour, Lena finally drops the subject to celebrate Thor's victory in the exam. He passed successfully and earned his qualification for the team, making Thor's assistant proud. Later, the protagonist heads back to his room to rest. Suddenly, a knock at the door. Lena asks permission to enter, apologizing for Bane's rude behavior. Shocked by the visit, the protagonist rushes to greet her on his knees. The princess is startled by his reaction. Thor quickly invites her to sit, and they start talking about the entrance exam. He says he is pretty impressed by all the raw talent he ran into. Lena has been watching all the fights from afar. She is genuinely delighted by his performance in the arena, and he looks so modest. The compliment makes Thor nervous, feeling embarrassed over something so simple. The princess asks the mage not to be so humble and to acknowledge his own skills. Soon she decides to leave, not wanting to be a bother. She tells him to rely on Lena if he needs anything at all. After all, she personally volunteered to help Thor with whatever he needed. When Lena leaves, the protagonist cries a little, moved by how much Lena values him. He gets worried when he remembers the princess's proposal that they get married. He realizes too late he was so distracted he didn't even notice Lena walking in. The assistant wanted to celebrate his big win, so she brought a homemade cake. They sit down to eat. In that moment, Thor recognizes the pure kindness of his former student. At the same time, he thinks Lena will stop putting him on a pedestal once they work together. Maybe she will even realize the protagonist isn't as good as he seems from far away. That thought really gets him down, so Thor promises his assistant he will work hard. In response, Lena says she already thinks he does enough, which moves him all over again. At night, Lena finishes the day's tasks and gets told by a servant it is time to sleep. Even so, she grabs a notebook to draw Thor. She praises her old teacher while writing a diary entry about him. Part of her even got jealous when she saw him holding Lena in his arms. The princess wonders who Thor would choose between Lena and Lena. She knows deep down they are the same person. But here is the thing, her biggest wish is just to make him find the happiness he deserves. And of course, she would love to marry him. She is going to work hard to win his heart. The next day, people gossip about Thor having defeated Valgar. It was annoying, but he wanted to believe his reputation would get better. So the protagonist asks Lena to help him find some work to do. He is anxious about just sitting around. He feels useless. Lena laughs at her former professor and tells him about a notice board. That is where they can pick up requests the Mage's Court and the Royal Guard ignore. They can get tasks that regular adventurers just couldn't solve. Usually, these were hard or boring missions with low rewards. Some looked urgent, and Thor gets interested in one from a distant village. In recent years, the crops there have been getting poisoned. There hadn't been any major harm to the people yet. The protagonist decides to check out the village and help those people. Some at court gossip that Thor won't succeed on the mission. That really annoys Lena, but Thor asks her not to worry. He would rather avoid picking a fight. 2 hours later, the pair of mages arrives at the village. They are warmly welcomed by the townspeople. The village chief Graba thanks them for the help. Graba insists the blighted fields aren't failing because of wind, water, or soil. Some villagers are convinced they've offended the sacred tree itself. They've been praying to it every single day, begging for forgiveness. Thor is surprised. The tree looks perfectly healthy, even with all this poison. He can feel the weight of Graba and Lena's expectations pressing down on him. Our hero attempts to purify the soil, and the toxins vanish instantly. But only for a second. The poison surges back with a vengeance. That is when the group realizes the sacred tree is actually the source. Graba notes it's a spiritual symbol, over 2,000 years old. Even the officials who investigated found nothing suspicious here. Thor asks for permission to get close and use a spell to clear it. With the village chief's blessing, Thor steps forward. He casts a spell, but there's no reaction at first. Suddenly, a root rips through the ground. The trunk starts twisting, surging upward in a terrifying display. It's a Triant, a monster born from a dryad possessing a body. Their strength depends on the vessel, but Thor has never seen one this massive. A battle is about to explode. He hits Grabo with acceleration magic, ordering him to sprint back to the village. He tells Lena to fall back too, but she's already locked in, ready to fight. Thor realizes it's safer to have her close, though this mission just hit S-rank level. The mage charges at the corrupted roots, slicing through them with her blade. Meanwhile, Thor focuses on slowing the massive beast down. Her reflexes are incredible. For some reason, they make Thor feel nostalgic. Lena prepares to close the distance to the main body while the mage provides cover. Soon, the Triant's branches lash out like tentacles, blocking the swordswoman's path. They're too dense to cut, so the protagonist reinforces Lena's blade with fire. Just like that, she manages to shred through the creature's defenses. But then, they catch the monster doing something unexpected. It's using water to douse the flames. This thing is actually smart. Thor decides they need a different strategy, and fast. Lena doesn't question him. She trusts her former teacher completely. She rushes the roots, taking advantage of their sluggish movement. Thor wonders if the Triant is laughing at them, underestimating their strength. As the monster tries to douse the fire, Thor switches Lena's sword enchantment to ace. Even for a master mage, swapping elements that fast is brutal work. Lena is pretty proud to have someone like him backing her up right now. She successfully freezes the tree and its water, locking its movements in place. Then the ice melts away, replaced instantly by white-hot fire. The flames roar, burning the creature all the way down to its core. Lena knows she couldn't have taken this monster down by herself. Once again, she's left completely amazed by Thor's incredible support magic. The ice freezes its movements, then suddenly shifts back into fire, burning that tree straight to the core. Lena knows for sure. She never could have taken that monster down alone, once. Again, she's completely floored by the power of Thor's support magic. At the battle's end, Thor drops to the ground, completely wiped out. He thanks his assistant for her hard work. Moments later, the villagers arrive to celebrate the monster's defeat. Lena tries to push all the credit onto Thor, but he just shakes it off. Thor apologizes to Grebo for destroying their sacred tree, but the village chief waves it off, just relieved the threat is finally gone. The villagers work together to clear the area, chopping up the remains to make sure the fire doesn't spread. Greba feels terrible that they can't offer a proper reward, so they hand over sacks of ashen charcoal, surprisingly rare and valuable materials. Back in the capital, the village had enough to survive on, so they don't mind gifting them. Getting a sudden idea, Thor asks if he can use the ashes to cast a blessing on their crops. He really wants to help them out using his best skill, nature magic. Since that sacred tree had watched over the people for 2,000 years, Thor figures it had been resisting that dark domination all along. It was protecting them until the very end, which just makes the villagers feel even more blessed. Eventually, the mages leave while the villagers praise their hard work. Suddenly, Greba gets word that the crops touched by those ashes are already growing at a rapid pace. Everyone is stunned. They're calling it a total miracle. On the journey back, Lena feels guilty for getting all the credit for Thor's work. After all, her whole plan as princess was to boost his reputation. Out of nowhere, the protagonist apologizes for making her work so hard. He noticed she had been acting a bit down since the mission finished. And Lena is thrilled he actually paid attention when she admits she is tired. Thor immediately uses a bit of magic to wash away her fatigue. Lena knows it won't be long before his true power gets recognized, finally making him a lord. And that gives the princess the perfect excuse to push for marriage. Meanwhile, inside a deep dungeon, Mia is struggling, genuinely fearing for her life. The next morning, Thor walks into work yawning, while Lena is full of energy as usual. 5 minutes later, she's sighing. After being dismissed by Thor, strolling through the halls, she spots him heading toward the Royal Guard headquarters and sneaks after him. Thor checks the daily mission board only to find it completely empty. According to the others, everyone is trying to impress Elena, so they are pulling double shifts. Some are even dumb enough to think they can just ask for her hand, which reminds Thor of that request the princess dropped on him earlier. Right in the middle of the chat, a knight mentions that Lena has been working herself to the bone. She's a known genius, but she's furious about losing to a newcomer like Thor. Ignoring that, Thor wonders what he is supposed to do all day with no missions left. The knights keep talking, mentioning how Mia and her captain Boldus went to a rank. Thor digs for info on the dungeon, hoping his newbie teammate is all right. He owes her for a past favor and really hopes he is just overthinking things. Still, he can't sit still. Boldus took a team in, and that kid is reckless. An inexperienced lead putting everyone in the line of fire. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Even the seasoned guild knights would struggle with this place. We are talking about 20 adventurers already lost to this dungeon. Thor doesn't wait. He kicks into gear, burning toward the site at top speed. Boosting his own movement with support magic, he closes the distance fast. He knows the drill. Certain monsters build fortresses to guard the core. They stash that core in the most inconvenient spots possible. As long as it stands, it keeps vomiting demons from the realm below. A constant, unending tide of monsters until a knight or mage ends it. The ranks were usually basic, but things can go sideways so quickly. Thor reaches the village near the dungeon entrance, and it is a ghost town. Everyone must have evacuated, but as he nears the cave, his gut tightens. He feels eyes on his back. Someone is tailing him. He flicks his magic on to skin the area and spots Lena hiding in his shadow. She is probably trying to report his every move back to the princess. That is bad news. If he fails this, he is definitely getting fired. Thor steels himself and sprints into the dungeon, totally ignoring her complaints. She's shouting that he is way too fast, but he is not stopping for her. The dungeon entrance is deep inside an old, abandoned mine. Thor readies himself. Dungeon ranks change on a dime. It happens all the time. With magical sight, he spots traces of mana and the wreckage of past fights. Suddenly, living suits of armor step out of the shadows. He wonders if the knights were incompetent enough to leave these behind on purpose. These things possess dead vessels, making them absolute nightmares to put down. Unless you exorcise the spirit, they just keep clawing their way back. Thor freezes the armors in their tracks, then hits them with pure holy magic. Down they go. He keeps moving, desperate to find Mage's team. Lena is watching from the back, and she is genuinely stunned. Seeing her old teacher pull off holy magic like that, it's not even fair. She watches from a distance, realizing he could clear this whole place solo. Thor keeps pushing, wondering if Mia's team panicked and bailed. Leaving this many monsters behind is a death sentence. Spirits are invisible to normal eyes, so you need someone with detection magic. Meanwhile, the knights are getting shredded by the living armor. They are screaming, panicking, and turning on each other. Boldus just folded, leaving his team to die while he ran for it. Thor doesn't hesitate. He steps in and wipes the spirits out in one motion. The pressure vanishes, and the surviving knights finally catch their breath. A mage gasps that Mia stayed behind to buy them time. Thor takes off. He has to believe she is hanging in there. She is a rock with those shields, but the clock is running out. Mia is cornered, fighting invisible spirits that she can't even see. With no mage in sight, her strength is fading fast. Terror sets in. The girl starts to cry. She's terrified this is the end. Then, a familiar voice rings out, "Look out, dodge that attack." She reacts on instinct, and suddenly, Thor's magic washes her fatigue away. The protagonist steps up, stunned as the spirits flicker into view. He tells them to leave it to him, while the knights handle the armor. The group moves in perfect sync, tearing through the monsters together. By the time Reina catches up, the battle is already finished. Thor gives the rookie credit for pushing through it all alone. She's grateful for the save, but she has to ask, "Why are you even here?" He admits he was worried about Mia. A flash of red hits her face, embarrassed, but deeply touched. Thor doesn't even notice, busy checking to make sure she's safe. Reina watches them and lets out a sigh of relief, deciding to slip away. Suddenly, the protagonist spots Ash shifting under the knight's boots. He shouts a warning, "Get ready. Another fight is coming." The ashes pour into a hole in the wall, feeding something massive. Thor knows it. That's the dungeon boss. Mia realizes the truth. It's a Death Eater, way too dangerous for a C-rank dungeon. She thinks she can force an opening for them to run. Thor sees how hard she's fighting to keep her composure. He points out the reality. The dungeon core is behind them. There's no escape. With a grit of teeth, Mia blocks the boss's heavy blow. The monster recoils, and Thor makes his point clear. Leaving now means more innocent people get eaten, fueling the beast. He believes in them. If they coordinate, they can actually win. Mia makes the call. She puts her life in the Mage's hands. Thor lays out the plan. They have to strip away that cloak. It's immune to both magic and steel, making it their biggest hurdle. Trusting her stamina, she gets a magical speed boost to bait the creature. The Death Eater lunges to crush her. Thor steps in just in time to keep her from being thrown away. "Don't tank everything," he warns. "Choose your blocks. Dodge the rest." Mia remembers Valgar's lessons and starts reading the boss's rhythm. Her confidence skyrockets. She knows they can pull this off. Thor is honestly impressed by the raw talent she's showing. Realizing the knight is too fast, the boss pivots, gunning for Thor. He's the easier target, but Mia isn't about to let that happen. She lunges, shielding the mage just in time. Seizing the window, the protagonist flashes deep into the beast. Even as the boss reels, Mia refuses to let it regain focus. Working as one, they begin to tear that impenetrable cloak to shreds. It's time to finish this. Mia plants her feet, fully committed. Thor readies his holy magic, waiting for the perfect strike. The Death Eater slams into the shield, and the trap snaps shut. The protagonist seizes the opening, finally finishing off the boss. He apologizes to the knight, feeling bad she had to work so hard. Mia quickly reassures him. She was happy to help. But it's a real shame Thor's sword broke during the fight. He decides to bring the pieces home anyway. It was a weapon he found in the dungeon, and it might just be a relic. Maybe it belonged to an old adventurer, killed by the Death Eater long before the core was destroyed. They decide to grab anything in the room that looks even remotely valuable. Suddenly, the ashes of the Death Eater's soul start drifting through the air. It's a beautiful sight. A little later, the pair safely exits the dungeon. Mia is genuinely amazed to watch the entrance simply vanish. She's thrilled. It was her first dungeon run, after all, especially since she managed to walk away with so much loot. Thor suggests they rest up before heading back to the capital, but he notices Reina has already left. The mage worries he didn't deliver good enough results. Mia spots the pained look on his face and immediately blames herself. The knight apologizes, feeling completely useless. She's embarrassed by her lack of ability, feeling like she doesn't belong in the royal guard. On the other hand, the protagonist knows they never could have beaten the Death Eater without her. Mia is moved by his honest praise, but Thor suddenly notices someone approaching. Troops led by Valgar arrive at the mines. Everyone is relieved to see the rookie is safe. The girl admits her shortcomings and promises she will train harder. Valgar tells her she did more than enough. Even though he gets the credit for destroying the core, Thor makes it clear he only helped Mia. The knight turns to Boldus, noting that his story doesn't match what the rookie just said. Boldus is shocked to see the girl is still alive. Thor remembers exactly when this guy turned tail and ran in the middle of the fight. That comment really pisses Valgar off. Boldus had accused Mia of ditching the squad during the battle. The knight tries to defend himself, accusing her of stealing dungeon loot to make extra money. But nobody believes a word he says, since the other knights told Veilgar the truth ages ago. Using his authority as captain, Veilgar fires Boldus from the royal guard on the spot. On top of that, the knight thanks Thor for the help and bows. It makes the protagonist nervous. Veilgar knows it was his responsibility as captain to deal with these internal problems. Not someone from the Mage's court, he's clearly blaming himself for the mess. Seeing his guilt, the protagonist decides to settle things by asking a favor. He lets the guard carry the dungeon loot directly to the guild. Thor doesn't care about rewards or money, which honestly shocks Veilgar and makes Mia laugh. Deep down, the protagonist just wants to keep the relationship between the knights and mages on solid ground. Instead of taking the carriage back to the city, he'd much rather walk. Mia joins him, absolutely hating the idea of traveling anywhere near Boldus. Plus, the female knight wants to use the quiet time to ask Thor for a little training. He just wanted to keep a good relationship between the knights and the mages. Rather than riding back to the city by carriage, he decides to walk. And she joins him, hating the very idea of traveling next to Boldus. The female knight also wants to use this chance to ask Thor to teach her. Mia needed support magic. She knew the protagonist was swamped, but she had to get stronger. All of a sudden, Thor just starts crying. Happy tears, he is more than willing to train her. If Mia masters magic, she will never have to deal with rude people making her feel small again. That comment triggers a memory of what Boldus said earlier. She wasn't actually offended, but she decides to let it slide. Thor is just way too excited to ruin the mood. Meanwhile, Lena is totally lost in the woods, but she refuses to ask anyone for help. Later that night, Thor, Lena, and Mia head out to grab dinner and finally unwind. This is happening right after they first arrived in the royal capital. The female knight invited the protagonist out, using the classic excuse that she did not know any good local spots. But Thor had just arrived in the city too. Lena suddenly showed up and decided to lead them to a really high-end restaurant instead. Over dinner, the assistant complains about missing the chance to watch the protagonist fight with his sword. Thor wants to shift the focus, so he mentions Mia wants to learn support magic. At that, the female knight drops the truth bomb. Knights usually look down on magic users because it goes against their code of chivalry. Everyone at the table agrees it is pretty stupid to call someone lazy for using support to grow stronger. During the conversation, the protagonist gets this hit of nostalgia. The vibe at the table feels strangely familiar. After dinner, the trio strolls through the streets and spots a giant statue of Alan. Mia takes the shot to ask Thor what the legendary hero was actually like. Playing it cool, the protagonist says he was not much different from the myths, but Lena knows the mage always refused to give real details. She personally doubts Alan was such a saint after he kicked Thor off the hero team. The princess did not mean to pry into his business, but she figures her ex-teacher must be carrying a lot of guilt. Next morning, Thor gets a massive pile of goods in his room as a reward for taking down that Death Eater. Even though the knights took all the credit for clearing the dungeon, Veilgar insisted the protagonist at least get a fair reward. It is a nice gesture. But the mage has no clue what to do with all this cash. Lena suggests crafting new gear. She thinks the Death Eater cloak would be incredibly useful if they could repurpose it. So the two head straight to the local equipment shop. They find out they can resize the cloak, but they cannot forge a new blade. From the dungeon boss's size, it is made of a strange iron that humans just cannot process. They cannot even reach the necessary melting temperature at the capital's forge. But then the protagonist realizes if they need more heat, he can handle that. He asks for permission to enter the workshop and gets to work. Thor starts by weakening the Sith's mana resistance so they can melt the metal. With magical fire, he seals the forge flames to keep the heat. perfectly steady. To everyone's absolute shock, the mage gets the scythe glowing, finally letting the team craft something new. The local craftsmen are speechless. He forged two fresh blades from all that iron, one for Thor, one for Lena. A strange choice for two mages, honestly. Only his assistant had any real skill with a sword, while the protagonist kept his tucked away just for self-defense. Plus, he had that magic resistant cloak on, made him practically untouchable. Leaving the workshop, Lena admits she feels guilty taking gear made from Death Eater's scraps, since she didn't even lift a finger in that fight. The protagonist just tells her it's a reward for always having his back. That gets a genuine laugh out of her. They decide to blow off some steam and grab a proper dinner for their day off. A few days later, they hit the job board. Looking for work, Thor realizes Lena had been grinding missions lately, assuming she was already out on another one. But word on the street is she hasn't checked back in for 3 whole days. Her last gig was tracking a massive monster deep in Cargo Forest. That place is a death trap if you don't know the layout. Some joke. Lena probably just lost her cool and torched the forest. But the protagonist isn't taking chances. He's going in to find her. Lena sighs, knowing Thor is just too soft for his own good. Cargo Forest is crawling with dangerous beasts. No sane person wanders in there. Thor figures it'll be a quick search if they don't hit any snags. High up in a tree, they spot a magical mark Lena left behind. They start tracking her, cutting through the brush at speed with support magic. The protagonist is proud to see Lena using the techniques he taught her so well. Suddenly, the magic trail goes cold. They stumble onto a battlefield, scorched trees everywhere, and a clear trail of monster blood leading deeper in. They decide to keep pushing forward while they investigate. The protagonist figures the injured beast probably signaled its pack before it ran off. They piece it together. Lena likely got disoriented during the hunt. Stuck in the heart of the dark forest, Thor can't find a single footprint, so he decides to blast his mana out there. Lena is a pro. She pick up on his signature and signal back. Lena will handle the monsters drawn in by the noise. That's the plan. She takes point on the incoming horde. As soon as the protagonist releases his mana, they sprint for the forest edge and find Lena. She totally loses it, screaming at them for showing up. But the pain in her gut cuts her rant short. Thor rushes over to check her wounds and realizes she's just suffering from a bad case of mushroom poisoning. He casts a quick healing spell, leaving Lena feeling pretty embarrassed but grateful. Before she can ask why they followed her, she starts shrieking at the sky. They look up, and yeah, dragons are circling overhead. They were known as the most dangerous creatures, turning everything they touch into ashes. Lena asks if that was the monster Lena had been hunting down before. Lena shakes her head no. It was way too strong for a single mage to handle. Suddenly, the lizard the mage was chasing launches a surprise attack right at them. Lena reacts in a blur of motion, taking it down with one clean sword slash. The real problem, that lizard just called in reinforcements. Now, the group is being pressured from all sides, pushed to their limit. Lena feels guilty for the danger. She tells them to run while she creates a distraction. Thor refuses. He suggests Lena handle the lizards while the other to deal with the dragons. He's convinced that working as a team is their only shot at winning this. Annoyed at being ordered around, Lena steps forward and barely saves Thor from a massive blast of dragon fire. That raw power she just displayed, truly impressive. Even our lead praises her fast reaction. But a second wave hits, and Lena realizes she's running dry on mana. Then, the protagonist strengthens the barrier with ice. Lena is completely confused. Fire should just melt that ice, right? Even so, they somehow managed to survive. Thor explains it was just luck. They were only facing a young dragon. He points out the creature gaining altitude, refining its mana for another flamethrower blast. It's impressive, honestly, the way it keeps fighting so stubbornly. But that comment really irritates Lena. She thinks Thor is mocking her, comparing her to the beast. Still, the mage knows he's older and more experienced, so she listens to the plan. Thor explains the dragon's weakness, that reverse scale right on its neck. One solid hit there, and they should be able to take it down. He breaks down their positioning, and soon, the dragon readies another attack. This is the chance they've been waiting for. Lena preps a shield coated in water. The goal, dampen that fire, buy Thor time to hit the weak spot. The mage forces the creature to slow its wings, pinning it down to the dirt. That temporarily strips away its natural resistance to magic. Now watch this. Lena lands a thundershot square on that weak spot. But the monster still won't go down. Thor barely shields the girl from another wave of fire. He yells at her to snap out of it and hit that neck scale again. Meanwhile, the creature forces itself back up. The protagonist holds it back with pure magic, forcing Lena back to her feet. Finally, she pulls it together and lands the final hit, finishing the dragon for good. Thor celebrates the win and praises her skill. That leaves her completely embarrassed and worried about his condition. She saw him take that hit for her, but to her surprise, he's totally fine. He'd shielded himself with his own water magic the whole time. The girl just stares. Our protagonist uses his magic to hold the beast back, forcing Lena to stand up at the same time. The mage finally pulls herself together, landing a hit on the dragon to finish it off. Thor celebrates the victory and gives the girl some genuine praise, which leaves her feeling embarrassed and worried about his condition after he protected her. To Luna's genuine surprise, he was totally fine. He had defended himself with water magic. The girl gets. She's annoyed that she worried for nothing, but still thanks him for risking his life. Even so, the protagonist can't quite hear her. The thunder left him temporarily deaf, and that hits Lena hard. She remembers being torn apart for accidentally hurting her teammates with her light magic. She quickly heals his ear, and just then, Lena walks up to the pair. The protagonist decides they should start collecting all the materials the dragon left behind. Thor asks Lena to clean what they harvest, and he tells her to just burn anything they don't need. The girl is actually confused. She expected to be scolded for her lack of ability. At the same time, she realizes those two aren't the type to say things like that. She starts helping them gather everything just as the guild group arrives to assist. Thor gets called over to inspect something strange inside the dragon's body. They look closer, thinking it's just a magic stone, but it turns out to be a dungeon core, and everyone is completely baffled. The protagonist decides they'll take the item back to headquarters to investigate. It's deep into the night when the exhausted trio finally returns to the city. Lena complains about how much mana she burned through just organizing those materials. Thor says it was necessary. Gathering everything the old-fashioned way would take forever. Suddenly, the mage feels a sharp pain in his leg. His assistant offers to massage it once they get back to their room. The protagonist starts to turn her down, but Lena cuts in. She knows a medicinal bathhouse that's perfect for clearing away that kind of fatigue. She stammers out an excuse. It's not like she actually cares if he's tired, but she wants to be mature and show some gratitude for his help earlier. They end up spending the night at the hot springs, finally getting some rest. Even so, Thor can't stop thinking about that dungeon core. Since the Demon King was taken down, new dungeons have been incredibly rare. Yet, several have popped up near the capital filled with powerful monsters. It really makes it seem like someone's behind this with some dark intentions. The protagonist wonders how he should even report this to headquarters. The next day, he tells Elena everything, and she immediately decides to investigate. That just makes the protagonist admire her even more. Having a leader who actually listens makes a huge difference. Thor feels great having a superior who truly trusts his instincts. Lena shows up to say good morning to the protagonist. He takes the chance to update her on his report to Elena. The mage praises her for being proactive. She's got the makings of a real queen. That really moves Lena. A little later, the two head to the mission board to pick up a new job. Lena decides to head off and rest after draining her mana against the dragon. Thor takes a mission to investigate screams coming from the capital sewers. If someone's trying to spawn secret dungeons, those sewers would be the perfect spot. On top of that, the underground is massive, a total maze. It's been giving the local knights a real headache. They keep tracking those strange, haunting screams echoing up from the sewers. Even then, our hero is just worried sick about everyone's safety down there. Lena kicks in her magical sight to scout the area for trouble. She scans the surroundings but can't pick up a single trace of abnormal mana. The place is weirdly spotless, kept clean like someone is hiding their tracks. Unless these monsters are actually pretty smart, they shouldn't be here. Thor suddenly speaks up. He's sure they've been followed for a while now. It isn't Mia, that's for sure, because the mana signature feels way too strong. They're using some kind of invisibility tool, keeping themselves totally hidden from view. So the two of them just keep walking, deciding to play it cool. They don't seem hostile, so they keep moving despite that weird feeling. Then, suddenly, the flickery light of a torch appears deep behind them. A whole new group is closing in fast down the narrow stone corridor. It's Mia, leading her squad of female knights on a routine underground inspection. The two groups run into each other, and things get awkward fast. Mia totally freaks out when she spots Thor standing there in the dark. She throws a wild punch, forcing a quick apology right after the hit. Thor doesn't mind. He's honestly impressed by her lightning-fast combat reflexes. Since they're both hunting for the same thing, they decide to team up. Lena checks the knight's map and spots a tiny, hidden room. It wasn't on the Mage's map, so they head over to investigate. The place is dust-free but damp, and Thor senses traces of mana. He moves to the back wall and finds a heavy, sealed lock. Lena confirms it's a magical seal. You'd normally need a special tool. But Thor isn't waiting around, and he decides to force it open. Looking for a key would take forever, to everyone's absolute shock. He just slices through the mechanism's mana supply, snapping the lock instantly. A hidden passage opens up, revealing a long, dark staircase leading down. A foul, horrible smell hits them as they descend into a massive arena. Cells line the walls, filled with all kinds of dangerous, caged monsters. Lena pieces it together. This is an illegal betting ring for beast fights. Suddenly, voices shout out from the shadows, panicking when they spot the knights. They realize they've been caught, scrambling to lock the doors. They start opening the cages, trying to unleash everything they have on them. It doesn't take long before the group is completely swarmed. Hundreds of creatures surround them, but Mia stays calm, trusting Thor's strength. He knows he can't let her down, not with that kind of faith. He shifts into support mode, ready to hold the line like he always does. The team moves in to take down the monsters one by one. Lena wants to show Thor exactly what her training has done for her. The other night girls are floored by how easily they fight alongside him. He's backing them up so well, they wipe out the horde in no time. The panicked bandits try to bolt, but they don't get very far. Someone uses magic to paralyze them instantly. It's Lena stepping into the fray. She grumbles that the others beat her to the punch in this investigation. He's constantly worried, always catching her working alone, but the mage complains. She insists she can handle herself just fine. Soon, the Capitol guards arrive. They head underground for an inspection. Thor points out the obvious to them. Running an arena that big isn't something just anyone could pull off easily. The captured bandits recognize the knights instantly. Someone inside the palace is involved. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something strange radiating from one of the cells. He goes over to check, focusing his senses on the dark interior. At first, his magical sight shows him nothing. Then a terrifying voice speaks. It praises him for sensing its presence. Thor yells out a warning. Get ready for another fight. A new creature emerges from the shadows. The monster gets irritated at being called a lich, correcting them with pride. He introduces himself as Reckles, one of the Demon King's top subordinates. Thor is a little startled by the name, so Lena steps forward. She taunts the creature. desperate for her chance at some long-awaited revenge. Reckles flies into a rage at hearing such blasphemy against Gizbar. He mourns his master, preparing to sacrifice the capital's humans for a ritual. Suddenly, the monsters' corpses start to rise, twitching into mindless zombies. Raina realizes the situation is spiraling. She wonders what Thor is feeling. Hearing about the Demon King again, she worries for the protagonist's safety. The mage catches her eye, thanking her for the sincere concern. Instead, he gets ready to crush the dreams of anyone wanting to revive Gizbar. Reckles realizes he's facing the very man who defeated his superior. Raina turns to the Night Girls, asking them to help neutralize the zombies. Necromancy is dangerous, high-level magic that drains a massive amount of mana. But here is the trick: destroy more than half a zombie. That keeps them from rising again. The Night Girls rush to distract them. They handle the weaker ones while Thor targets the larger threats. Even so, Reckles has no intention of standing still, prepping a massive fireball. He plans to wipe everyone out in one single, devastating stroke. Mia cries out, terrified for the protagonist, but he easily smothers the flames. He douses the fireball with water, mocking the Lich's pathetic rage. The mage insults Gizbar, goading Reckles into an even deeper, blind fury. The monster unleashes several attacks at once, but Thor blocks them all effortlessly. The Night Girls are amazed at how insanely strong the mage is. Raina explains it away. He's just using basic elemental magic. Even so, Thor is a total exception, balancing pure technique and raw power. That perfect control is exactly what his assistant admires most about him. The protagonist keeps provoking Reckles, forcing him to show his true hand. The monster finally decides to reveal his hidden strength, just as Thor expected. You can see it. The opponent is burning through mana with every spell. He gets worn down by the constant taunts and the mage's unbreakable defenses. Soon, the zombies stop moving as the Lich cancels the necromancy spell. He needs that mana to defend himself against Thor's incoming attack. Reckles is furious, realizing he fell for the enemy's plan too late. He can't defend against the final blow, or so it should have ended. A third person's magic takes down the Lich right before his eyes. Everyone wonders who pulled it off, but they look up to find Lena. She finished the monster before Thor, and that has Raina absolutely furious. Credit stolen. The group moves in to collect the materials the monsters left behind. The mage checks on Reckles and finds something that makes his blood run cold. There was a dungeon core hidden inside him too. It confirms a link between the arena and all this recent, weird activity. Even so, Thor isn't about to let the Demon King get revived. Later, Lena begs the protagonist for forgiveness, feeling guilty for killing Reckles. Raina stays ticked off at her recklessness. Finally, the group decides to hit the hot springs. They need the downtime, a good meal, and a chance to actually relax. During dinner, Mia's classmates mention they're getting interested in support magic. That news really makes Thor happy. Meanwhile, somewhere far from the Empire, the real commander of the Knights is finally making his way back to headquarters. As time passes, Thor's students keep pushing their training with support magic. Raina helps them out, explaining how to improve, but she's being especially strict with Lena. The protagonist shows up to class a bit later, genuinely surprised to see everyone gathered and ready so early. Mia says she can handle acceleration on her own now, and Thor praises her for it. Luna says she finally learned magic vision, too. Raina immediately teases her for being so slow to improve. That just makes Luna cling to Thor, complaining that Raina is being way too strict. It only annoys the assistant, and Mia has to jump in, asking everyone to just calm down. With that, Thor pulls away from Luna's touch. He makes it clear that Raina wasn't being hard on her for no reason, trying to lighten the mood. He shows. He brought snacks for everyone and suggests they take a quick break. Raina is actually touched, realizing the protagonist remembered her favorite flavor. She's in a great mood because Thor is so kind. She starts to wonder if she's special to her teacher, not acting childish like Lena. After the students finish their snacks, Thor, Lena, and Lena head out for a walk around the capital. They notice the place is packed. It's pretty rare to see it this crowded. Lena complains that they're out of work, and Lena teases her to just leave, clearly wanting to be alone with Thor. They keep arguing until a huge crowd celebrating something suddenly grabs their attention. As they get closer, they realize they're welcoming back Arno, the captain of the guard. A year ago, he defeated the old leader and snatched the top spot. He's been getting tons of praise from the Emperor ever since. Lena mentions that Arno is a huge hit with the young women, which frustrates Lena since she's just another fan. She even snaps that she's only interested in someone who can beat her at magic, but Thor just ignores her and points toward the captain of the guard finally arriving. All of a sudden, the protagonist locks eyes with Arno. In that exact moment, the captain jumps off his horse and sprints toward him. He drops to his knees, overjoyed to see his old teacher again, causing a massive scene. Thor stands there, shocked. He never imagined that former delinquent could turn into such an amazing man. A knight asks Arno to head to the palace, tired of all the pointless gossip. The captain decides to leave, quickly telling our protagonist to meet him at headquarters later. Thor tells the girls he used to teach him magic, but had no clue about his last name, so he didn't recognize him. The three decide to step away from the crowd to talk in private. Lena always found it strange that the captain used magic, but it all clicks now. They went to the same school. There was this old rule in the royal guard banning magic in fights, because it supposedly made them lazy with physical training. Even today, some people still swear by that old school knight style and follow the rule to the letter. But on the flip side, Arno was the total opposite, which made him a target for a lot of resentment. Hearing that makes Thor want to step up. He was his teacher. After all, the girls agree. Our lead decides to head off to find the captain, asking Lena and Lena to try not to fight too much while he is gone. When he arrives at headquarters, Arno begs Thor to become the official magic instructor. He argues the guard needs to get as strong as possible, and having a skilled mage is essential. Thor gets tense from all the praise and high expectations. Soon, Valgar shows up to back the idea, mentioning our lead is a talented teacher, making the other knights pretty curious. To Thor's genuine surprise, Valgar was another one of Arno's fans, but before Thor can even argue against it, someone else loudly protests having a magic instructor on board. A knight named Edmund refuses to work with mages. Arno understands just how determined he is, but he is so harsh it makes Thor remember his own delinquent days. Even Mia, who wanted to back Thor, gets scared to jump into the middle of this argument. 10 years back, when the heroes faced Gizbar, the knights struggled and took heavy losses. Still, Edmund, the former captain's son, refuses to accept magic, calling for a vote to settle the matter. Arno fires back, let's settle it in a duel. Just like tradition says, the opposing group refuses, suspecting the captain cheated by using magic to defeat Edmund's father. Valgar scolds them, since the duel was witnessed by the Emperor, making their accusations a massive sign of disrespect. Arno cannot believe Edmund wants to strip his rank right after he cleared an S-rank dungeon. The captain is responsible for keeping everyone safe, and he gestures to the wounded knights who just returned from the front. He would do anything to keep his people alive, and he doesn't need a title to do that. But even with their differences, Arno wants this guard to be unbreakable, and he is ready to take on anyone. Thor senses things turning sour, so he steps in to demand the truth. He asks Edmund point blank, "What exactly is your goal with firing the captain?" The kid wants his father Gustav back in the role, furious and entitled. He hates that some mere mage is trying to lecture the knights. Arno gets fed up, sick of them disrespecting his old teacher like this. The protagonist steps in, using a burst of magic to kill the tension. He scolds them both for losing their cool over nothing. They need to act like adults, so he proposes a dungeon race instead. First to destroy the core wins the argument, plain and simple. And get this, the rules allow them to fight each other if they want. Veilgar suggests the golem mine, which happens to be in its active period. Active dungeons can be cleared multiple times, respawning after a set duration. It's a great training ground, sure, but there's a catch. It's a ranked dungeon, making it incredibly dangerous to clear. Both sides agree to the stakes, ready to finally settle the score. Edmund brings his own squad, while Arno insists on going solo, alongside Thor, who is honestly annoyed to be dragged into this drama. But Arno is confident, promising Thor he won't get in the way. He basically forces Thor onto his team, confident in his own strength. Meanwhile, Edmund is already plotting to make them both regret this. Time flies, and everyone gathers at the entrance to the abandoned mines. Veilgar lays out the rules, confirming both sides are locked in. Thor notes Edmund brought some high-ranking mages, which is bad news. But he's quickly distracted when Lena calls out to him. The girls came to cheer him on right before the start signal. Thor and Arno bolt into the dungeon, buffed by support magic. Edmund is shocked by their speed, though a knight doubts their mana. The critic thinks they'll burn through their energy way too fast. But inside, the protagonist and his student are crushing golems with ease. Thor tells Arno to stay sharp, and Arno just laughs it off. He remembers he's the captain now, and he's happy just to be here. He's genuinely impressed that his teacher's skills haven't slipped at all. Thor is touched by the praise, even complimenting Arno's speech from before. Arno gets a bit flustered, but Thor suddenly warns him to look out. More enemies are closing in. These golems have weapons built into them. They lock and load, ready for the clash while the crowd watches from outside. Lena and the female knights are stunned by the duo's elite technique. Veilgar is even more surprised by the broadcasting tool Lena brought along. The knights watching outside are floored to see Arno moving so efficiently. Veilgar explains that it's all thanks to the precision of Thor's magic. Back in the day, the captain and Veilgar really struggled against these things. Lena nods in agreement, knowing exactly how tricky these monsters are. Every golem's core is in a different spot, which is the main headache. You have to smash multiple parts just to find the actual weak point. They've got heavy resistance and thick armor. They're a nightmare to fight. Thor is a total beast when it comes to magic control, and Lena is finally giving him his due. His job is so brutal that even the top court mages have to call him a straight-up genius. Lena is beaming, just soaking in the fact that everyone's finally starting to see it. Her teacher, Veilgar, admits he's totally sold on Thor, wanting him front and center. Mia asks what he's getting at, and the knight just lays it out. He wants to bring Thor on as the team's lead tutor. Meanwhile, Edwin is shaking things up. He makes the call to split the knights and the mages into separate groups. They're heading out to handle the scouting work deep in the dungeon. Lena is confused and honestly pretty worried since she doesn't know a single mage on that squad. Lena just shrugs it off, saying none of them were real mages anyway, which makes Veilgar stop and take notice. Meanwhile, Marno is crunching the numbers. They're nearing the end of the dungeon, and he thinks it's beyond weird. Not a single heavy-hitting monster has crossed their path yet. Lena figures the real threat isn't a boss, it's the dungeon itself trying to kill them. He thought Edwin would be playing way more aggressive in this competition. He's actually surprised they haven't run into a single soul from the other team. But right on cue, an armored golem stomps out to block their path. The duo braces for the final showdown against an opponent that shrugs off both magic and steel. Thor is already questioning how they're even supposed to scratch it. Arno points out that the creature's core is tucked in its chest, betting they can win if they push for 10 minutes. As soon as the golem lunges, the protagonist tells the captain to bait it. Thor is already analyzing the armor, realizing the magical plating won't melt under normal pressure. Lena and Lena are floored by how fast Arno is moving with that spear, and Veilgar is quick to break it down. He explains that the captain's style is all about that perfect balance between pure mobility and raw, heavy strength. With Thor's support magic layered on top, the captain is practically unbeatable. Thor and Lena realize this golem is way bigger than it has any right to be. As the monster lifts its massive leg to crush Arno, the protagonist seizes the moment, forcing the heavy beast into the air. Thor locks it in place, burning through his vision to pinpoint the exact location of the core. The captain drives his spear straight at the weak spot, but it won't break through, so the mage dumps extra weight onto the weapon to add the necessary force, shattering the monster for good. The protagonist is quick to praise his former student for cleaning up the whole fight in under 3 minutes. Now they can finally target the dungeon's heart and push toward the back. A little while later, the pair gets warped out, and Arno nearly crushed Thor. In a hug, ignoring how heavy his own armor is, they shift gears to sort through the loot they dragged out, while at the same time, I have to say, it's still super weird that they haven't crossed paths with Edwin and his crew. Then, right in the middle of it all, a stranger walks up, and the protagonist immediately realizes he's one of the mages from the other team, ready to explain everything. He finally ditched Edmund, tired of that leader's garbage decisions. Now he's set on helping the pair instead. It doesn't take long for Arnold to call it out. That stranger is a hired assassin. The reveal hits Thor like a truck, pure shock. The assassin stops pretending, dropping the disguise for good. He finally shows his true face to them. He says his only job was to end Arnold right away. Meanwhile, the crowd watching is absolutely losing it. Veilgar declares the duel invalid, demanding they pull the competitors out now. But Lena argues the captain wouldn't lose with Thor at his side. Lena agrees, backing that up completely. Veilgar's actually impressed by how much faith they have in Thor. Meanwhile, Arnold tells the mage to back off, but Thor refuses. He knows one of his students' lives is on the line now. He can't back down. Even the assassin flinches at the aura coming off him. The killer knows he's doomed if he faces Arnold one-on-one. The captain quickly realizes the enemy is trying to lure him into the open. The plan is pretty obvious. He's got backup coming to finish it. Thor worries they're in trouble against that many people. But Arnold stays calm. Even if they all jumped him at once, it's the perfect opening. He could wipe the entire group out in one single go. So Arnold takes the group while Thor handles the assassin's boss. Everyone's stunned at how fast the captain takes control. Even Lena notices how sharp Arnold is with that support magic. He's just using simple spells, but keeping them active this long takes skill. It's enough to prove to the other knights that magic is actually useful. While Arnold wipes the floor with them, Thor wonders what his next move is. The mage tries to pin the assassin down, but the spell shatters almost instantly against that magic resistance. Thor powers up, drawing the sword he got recently to strike. The assassin is stunned when he recognizes the weapon. He realizes the mage is using Demon King Iron. He asks how that is even possible. The protagonist explains he ditched swordsmanship long ago to master magic. That honesty makes the assassin drop his guard, introducing himself as Kalman. Thor is confused by the sudden friendly vibe, but he realizes Kalman is already prepping something underhanded. That's why Thor moves faster to crush the guy's trump card. He smacks him straight in the face with the sword hilt. Seeing his teacher floor Kalman, Arnold just starts clapping. Thor lets out a long, tired sigh. Suddenly, Edmund shows up, claiming he came to help Arnold. But when he sees everyone already defeated, his mask slips. He's clearly frustrated that his little plan didn't work out. Now that the captain is exhausted from fighting the assassins, Edmund agrees. He jumps into the fray, dragging Thor right into that chaos. When the competition ends, the Emperor disqualifies Edmund, but he gets surprised. Veilgar steps up, actually having something to say about that decision. Veilgar claims the riot was just a personal grudge and asks Heinrich for mercy. After a moment, the Emperor agrees to the request and dismisses them both. To celebrate the win, Thor and Arnold head out for some drinks. The main guy eventually learns that Valgar only defended Edmund for the family influence. Even though Arnold isn't thrilled, they need that power to defend the capital. Then he brings up rumors someone is actually trying to revive the Demon King. Reyna remembers the hidden arena, and their investigation confirms Geibel's father was involved. A group punishment is unavoidable now, and things are only getting worse. The main guy worries there might be even more collaborators hiding in the shadows. Trying to change the subject, Thor admits he is unsure if he is a good tutor. All his students protest immediately, making it clear they really admire his guidance. Valgar agrees, praising Thor's tactical experience, while Lena gets annoyed at his humility. The whole group keeps hyping him up until the poor mage is totally embarrassed. He is genuinely grateful, though. After dinner, they walk the night streets to unwind. Arnold takes the chance to ask what Thor really thinks about Reyna. The mage calls her kind and strong, but he only sees a good student. More than anything, Thor just wants to see her happy, no matter what. Hearing that, Reyna decides to accept things as they are, at least for now. Soon the group says goodbye, leaving the two mages alone in the quiet. The main guy suggests they head back to the palace, but exhaustion hits hard. He passes out cold, and the familiar dream of the Demon King returns. Thor had run out of mana while trying to hold up a protective shield. He was ready to give everything he had just to keep his companions safe. To him, they were all legendary heroes with talents that could change the world. Thor felt like just an ordinary, replaceable mage, even if death terrified him. He chose to sacrifice himself with pride, thinking it was his final moment. But then, right when he gave up, mana flooded back into his body. He took a second to understand why, then saw the impossible happening. Alan had dropped his own shield, throwing himself into danger for the team. The main guy screamed the hero's name, desperate and terrified for his friend. But he watched in total shock as the Demon King's attack just vanished. That impossible moment became known as the hero's miracle, turning the tide. Gisbar's defeat had the team celebrating, sure they had won without losing anyone. Death terrified him, sure, but dying like this, with pride, that felt right. Just as he accepted it, mana rushed back into his veins. Thor blinked, barely processing what was happening when the unexpected hit. Alan dropped his own shield, throwing himself right into the line of fire. The protagonist screamed his name a raw, desperate cry for the hero. And he froze, watching the Demon King's attack just vanish into thin air. They called it the hero's miracle, and with Gisbar down, the team cheered. They really believed it. A victory where not a single person died. Or so they hoped, but Thor soon found only what was left of Alan. It was the brutal price paid to defeat humanity's greatest enemy. The world lost its strongest hero, and the imperial capital took the survivors in without a single word of thanks. They were terrified, watching the heroes drowning in pure despair, and Thor never managed to climb out of that pit of insecurity and fear. Then the hero wakes up to realize he had been sleeping. With his head in Reyna's lap, the mage apologizes, but she says it is perfectly fine. She's more worried about his nightmare, even joking that Thor was proposing to her in his sleep. She's covering the fact she heard him calling out for Alan. Reyna knew the hero's death left a deep, painful wound in his heart, and that is why she wants to help. Thor sees it is all ready. Dawn and decides it is finally time to head back to the palace. 10 years after Alan's death, Thor still couldn't understand him. The companions found a diary where Alan wrote that he regretted how weak the team was. That is why Alan planned to kick Thor off the team after Gisbar's defeat. Ever since, Thor has been wondering why, and he has never found the answer. Suddenly, Reyna points at the beautiful sky, pulling him away from his dark thoughts. Thor looks at her and agrees, saying he got lost thinking about something he couldn't grasp. Why Reyna would go so far to help him. The assistant answers that it is because she loves him, even though Thor knew that. He wanted to know how it felt at the very start. So the girl explains. She saw him as someone special because he helped her whenever she needed it. Raina learned so much, and she can only smile now thanks to Thor. Since the day Thor returned after Gizbar's defeat, something inside him was lost, and now she wants to support him just as much as she was helped before. Losing his companions because of his own weakness was a constant, gnawing pain. Thor would never forget that, which is why he never wanted to let others suffer through that same dark despair. The hero thanks Raina because now he knows exactly what he wants for the future. Stopping the Demon King's rebirth. Meanwhile, on Mount Eld, a group of demons heard about the Golem dungeon being conquered. Realizing their plans had been exposed, they decide they must hurry to resurrect Gizbar at any cost. Over the next few days, Thor's students keep training their magic. Valgar feels sad that he cannot keep up with the others, but Thor advises him not to take it all so seriously. Instead of forcing his body, he should move slowly and blend magic into his own style. The knight was already quite skilled. He just needed something to complement Thor's skill set. He breaks down tough spots where brute force with a weapon wasn't enough. They have to adapt on the fly to avoid heavy losses on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Mia is blowing everyone away by conjuring a massive fireball. Lena notes that it's second nature for the girl at this point. She started training way ahead of the pack and puts in the work. Thor nods, adding that building up mana is a marathon, not a sprint. You have to be patient. Before long, the training session wraps up. The knights all thank their new magic tutors for the guidance. Lena immediately scolds Thor for getting all awkward and intimidated by their gratitude. She's annoyed at how humble he is. Thor sighs, a little dazed. He admits he's never had this many students. Support magic is rarely popular. Mia walks over and drops the truth. It's just the hardest path to master. Everyone else chimes in, confirming it, which leaves Thor feeling pretty discouraged. Luna points out that Raina and Arno were probably just freakish learners. Right on cue, Arno shows up to praise the class, accidentally twisting the knife. He keeps reinforcing just how brutal support magic is to learn. He feels bad relying on his old teacher, but he's got a favor to ask. Before long, Thor is shipped off on a mission to Mount Eld. That's where Gizbar's forces used to forge those legendary magical weapons. The Empire took the mountain after the war, but they got crushed. It's a top-secret mess kept quiet to avoid a total public meltdown. Arno can't handle it himself. Too much heat, so he sends Thor instead. The mage decides to take a few trusted knights to back him up. Belger tells the rookies to keep their heads on straight for this one. Thor takes a moment to thank him for jumping into the fray. Luna gripes about being ignored, and Thor is quick to say he's glad she's here. Mia chimes in, wondering why Raina isn't glued to Thor's side today. Luna brushes it off, saying the assistant is likely busy with the princess. Thor hasn't heard a word from her, though, and he's starting to get worried. Is she avoiding him? He pushes the thought down as Valgar calls out. He draws everyone's attention to the fortress looming ahead of them. It's perched way up high, and they can already see winged monsters circling. Looks like the army is getting pounded from the south and north. Thor doesn't have the full intel, but it's clearly a group of elite adventurers. You can feel the tension. Thor's worst fears are coming to life right now. Even so, he's dead set on stopping the demon lord's return at any cost. Valgar is genuinely stunned by the dangerous aura rolling off the mage. When Thor gets serious, he's a completely different person. Luna smacks him on the back, warning him not to play the lone hero. That snap of reality reminds him of an old friend's advice. He takes a breath and manages to calm his nerves. Finally, the squad hits the front lines of the Emperor's army. Thor steps up to explain they're there to lend a hand. With the fortress crawling with demons, it's time to get to work. They figure their enemies aren't smart enough to actually use the terrain. So everyone agrees to just storm in and attack head-on. Thor is happy to have such good students. He'll stay on, providing support like always. The front line is Thor and Mia. The mage will clear their fatigue and defend them whenever needed. The second line has Lena on the offensive, flanked by 2 knights, protecting her flanks, and in the back, Valgar guards the group. Right as the battle starts, Thor tells Lena to focus hard. Take down the archers and mages, but don't finish them off. That leaves the mage pretty confused. One knight explains the plan. The enemies will collapse from exhaustion soon. Lena gets it. She decides to wipe them all out at once with one massive spell. Meanwhile, the others keep defending her, giving all the support they can. The girl's spell triggers a massive explosion across the entire area, and everyone dives for cover, hunkering down safely inside. Thor's barrier holds firm. Even the Empire's knights look totally shocked. Seeing that blinding light on the horizon, the enemy forces, they were all swept away by Lena's brutal, overwhelming attack. With that problem handled, they head toward the other under-attack zones. They soon run into 3 demons closing in on their position. Getting ready for the fight, Thor organizes the team again. He decides to take the middle opponent alone, watching him fight. It really annoys Lena, but she can't defy his direct orders. The team splits up. The demons start unleashing heavy shadow magic, so they reinforce their shields with sacred, holy power. That lets them tank the hits while Lena preps new spells. Meanwhile, the demon Thor chose starts laughing right in his face. Realizing the creature is charging an attack, the protagonist moves. He closes the distance fast. The demon starts to panic. It fires magic bullets, but Thor easily dodges every single one. The creature realizes it's facing a human who is not normal. It gets excited, but before it can strike, the mage moves. He catches it off guard with a burst of holy light. To the protagonist, the demon was way too slow. It's defeated. The mage cuts his enemy down with one clean sword stroke. Meanwhile, the rest of the team's coordination is actually working perfectly. One demon mentions the name Jilvis before dying, but no one notices. Everyone just celebrates the easy win with 0 casualties or injuries. Even so, the mission isn't over yet. Thor reminds them all. They still have to break into the main enemy base. They don't see any other enemies on the way to the fortress, but everyone ends up shocked when they find an old battlefield. The smell of blood and death is just way too strong. Coming from all kinds of monsters, suddenly, a demon comes flying. It's been hit by a fatal slash from the Empire's strongest human. The group freezes, staring in total shock at the newcomer. Then they realize it is a swordswoman standing there. The girls are floored by her beauty, but Thor knows her instantly as Lena. The others catch on fast too. This woman has cleared 30 S-ranked dungeons. She has taken down hundreds of monsters completely on her own. She was a legend in the Royal Guard, admired by absolutely everyone. And no one is surprised to learn Lena was once Thor's student. After the quick explanation, Valgar leaves the command to our protagonist. Lena and Thor act like total strangers. It is beyond awkward. The mage missed his chance for a proper greeting, so things feel tense. Still, Lena says she's fine with the orders and asks what the plan is. Right then, enemy reinforcements arrive, a massive army of demons. The sight catches the entire group completely off guard. Thor knows exactly what this means. They are surely deep into a ritual. Someone is trying to summon a powerful demon right inside the fortress. It takes a mountain of human sacrifices, and Thor decides to fight alone. Lena complains about that plan, but Thor makes it clear he can handle it. He tells the others to destroy the ritual altars while he holds the line. To calm the team, Lena decides she is staying behind to help him. Lena asks Thor to be careful, and the mage agrees, telling them the same. Soon, a demon steps up, acting impressed that humans made it this far. But our hero doesn't care for the villain's dramatic monologue. He decides to skip the talking and get straight to the beating. In just a few seconds, he starts tearing through the enemy ranks. Lena carves a path with her sword, and the rest of the team charges. They storm the fortress, but one demon sees what they are planning. It decides to sacrifice its own life to speed up the process. Thor tries to take down as many as he can, but it is not enough. Several of them become part of the ritual right in front of them. Valgar shouts a warning. Do not breathe the magic fog. It is toxic miasma. Right at that moment, Thor realizes they arrived too late to stop it. Seeing the scale of this ritual, no mere S-class demon is appearing. Instead, a terrifying shadow dragon is about to tear through the veil. Thor and Lena stand side by side, steeling themselves for the fight. He doesn't think he can beat the dragon while protecting everyone else. But staying on the defensive is too dangerous, so he chooses to attack. He decides they will constantly alternate between striking and running. Lena is surprised by the call, trying to keep up with his wild pace. The protagonist admits he was acting formal because he thought she forgot him. That honestly annoys her. How could she ever forget her own teacher? Right then, the dragon attacks, and the mage blocks it with a holy shield. Lena looks at him, remarking on how Thor hasn't changed a bit. The swordswoman stood there, the memory of her old teacher burning bright. Suddenly, the dragon lunges, but the mage slams a holy shield down. Lena laughs. Honestly, Thor hasn't changed a bit. Confused, since they haven't seen each other in 10 long years. Even so, the swordswoman is happy to see her teacher remembers her. That should have been obvious. After all, she was the protagonist's very first student. The whole cute moment makes Lena hide just how happy she is, forcing her focus back on the battle. For a split second, Thor is caught off guard because the way she spoke sounded so much like Lena. But what shocks him the most is finding out his student still wasn't good with basic support magic.